What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the third installment for What If Naruto Went Rogue. The previous part definitely received a lot of support, and a lot of you guys seem to be really messing with this series. That said, seeing as I really have nothing to say for today, I just hope you guys want to enjoy today's video, and if you do, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite part of the video was, as well as some ideas for the future parts of this series. That said, leave a hashtag more down below in the comments to show me that you guys want another part to this. That said, let's get into the video.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We start our story with the exam proctor announcing Naruto's alias to the crowd, as well as Neji Hyuga, as both of the combatants would end up making their way towards the arena. Zabuza would nod to Naruto as he takes each steps towards the battlefield. Naruto would think back to his days in the village, where he would wonder where his parents were and why he was always alone, thinking back to the countless nights where Naruto would go sleep hungry and all the memories of him being lonely. It would be hard for him to contain his tears, but everything would play out through his head as he would finally arrive in the middle of the stadium to hear cheers from the crowd, with some hidden leaf bystanders even cheering for him. Naruto would be thinking to himself, how come they never once cheered for him when he was himself, when he was Naruto, a member of the village? But now, they're cheering for some village outsider. A small amount of rage would begin building within Naruto, which would begin overcoming the young Naruto. He would close his eyes and once more think back to the harsh training he had to endure to get to where he is today, and how many times Zabuza protected him in battle, even though Zabuza would always claim not to care for them. Naruto would think back to when he couldn't control his own chakra. He couldn't weave jutsus, and he was pretty much a useless weapon to Zabuza. Haku was always the better one of the two. He had that extremely powerful Kekkei Genkai, and from the way things stand, Haku completely outclasses Naruto when it comes to the amount of jutsu he's able to weave. He can even weave a bunch of one-handed jutsus, and it's very, very impressive to Naruto anytime that he sees Haku in battle. But Zabuza never gave up on Naruto, and eventually he ended up mastering Wind Release, as well as a couple more basics. With more constant training, he even learned a couple of basic elemental jutsus from every style. He would train under extremely hard conditions, sometimes with broken bones even, and it was all worth it, because now, in this moment, on this day, he will show the people of this village a fraction of the pain that he endured because of them. He would step on the stage as Neji begins spouting nonsense about destiny, but Naruto would smile as he would whisper to himself that today, the shinobi will die. A dark aura would begin to surround Naruto as he rushes as Neji's direction, and as soon as the proctor announces the start of the battle, Neji would not have enough time to react to the speed that Naruto would attack him with. Naruto would rush right in Neji's direction as he would weave one-handed signs for a jutsu, and he would also simultaneously come in for a sword slice, which Neji would weave, barely being able to miss it, as Naruto would weave a fire style attack, sending Neji flying back, with Naruto having barely enough time to master something like that. The reason that Naruto would have had any fire style jutsus was because combating Haku with his ice, Naruto figured that would be the best form of action. Memories at this moment in the battle would begin flushing in Naruto's head. His time in the village and his time with Zabuza would begin flooding his mind, with Naruto struggling to hold back his rage and emotions. His aura would grow larger as his power would grow constant. He would begin thinking back to the times when he was called a monster, and his resolve would finally harden. His resolve would harden so much, in fact, that Naruto would begin throwing his sword up into the air as he sweeps Neji's legs with speed so unprecedented that Neji would simply not have enough time to react. Neji would try to do so by compensating it mid-fall, but Neji would not be able to. The sword would come down, plunging into Neji's leg, piercing it, and stabbing it right into the ground, as Naruto would smile, before then saying that he will just be another name on the long list of people he's had to kill to get here. Before Naruto would take out his sword and go to kill Neji, this is when Hiyashi Hyuga would step in the way, stopping the blow from landing, with Hinata's father being the one to stop this attack. Naruto would look up at the Byakugan being activated, with an angry stare, as he would pull his sword back and say if he ever gets in his way again, he'll kill him, before walking off in a fit. The next battle would be announced, Haku versus Gaara. Immediately after, the next battle would follow. Then we would have Gaara appear amidst sand. He would give off a very threatening aura, and Naruto would be up on stage watching with Zabuza. The match would be called, and immediately Haku would throw a senbon that would be stopped by Gaara's sand as he lifts his hand and shoots a large amount of sand at Haku, which Haku would use his Ice Genkai to freeze. Gaara noticing this, he ends up keeping his sand distant from Haku, not trying to go in for too many attacks, just because he knows that if he ends up running out of sand, it's going to become increasingly harder to fight against this Haku kid. However, he's not too worried about this, just due to the fact that Gaara has sand all around him. Even though this may not be the village hidden in the sand, in the earth there is sand particles that he can use at his own disposal whenever he needs. However, Hiruzen seeing the ice, being used, would have something to, how do I put this, alert him that something is up, because they ended up finding traces of ice on Sasuke's dead body. Suspicion would arise between Hiruzen and a couple of other ninjas that were aware of Sasuke's death. However, Haku not realizing that everyone's having suspicions on him, but realizing that the sand was going to be protecting Gaara at all costs, would decide that he's going to be needing to find a different approach to this battle. Haku, once seeing this, would rush in at his top speeds, throwing a bunch of senbon at Gaara so Gaara would not be able to see him. He would rush in before then slamming his hand on the ground, creating a gigantic crystal ice mirror jutsu, as he would shoot water at Gaara as well, and as it would hit Gaara, Haku would put his hand down, freezing Gaara in place. This would slow Gaara down a lot, as he would then begin using his ice release jutsu, and he would begin to pretty much start throwing senbon at Gaara at speeds that his sand is simply unable to keep up with, as a bunch of needles would come flying in and Gaara would finally see his own blood. He would lose himself to the overwhelming rage that he would begin feeling, with Gaara screaming, "Blood! My blood!" He would scream out loud to the heavens, as he would begin pretty much start losing his absolute mind. He would begin partially transforming into the One-Tails, as simultaneously, the signal for the Konoha Crush would go off. Chaos throughout the village would ensue, and Lee would be the one to chase after Gaara, wishing to fight him. As that would be happening, we would see Guy begin to protect civilians, as a bunch of the people who were in the original story trying to attack a bunch of the ninjas, they would all end up clashing. Zabuza would begin the killing of countless Leaf Shinobi alongside Naruto, who was at this moment in time absolutely bloodlusted, and even would end up killing a couple unconscious Leaf villagers that he remembered for so long ago, before Guy would come in, throwing a kick at Naruto, which would send Naruto flying back in pain as he would hold his head, which Guy had just kicked, and Zabuza would get in the way before saying, "Naruto, Orochimaru and the Hokage ran away, go back him up, I'll deal with this one here." As this would be happening, Naruto would notice that that's true. They were nowhere to be found. So he quickly would body flicker to the point before the barrier could be put up, and Naruto would stand idly by, watching as the battle would go on. At this moment, we are going to be switching perspectives to Lee, who is currently going to be chasing Gaara down, and the Sand siblings would be dealt with by Shino, who would end up fighting against Kankuro, and Lee, who would take Temari out in a very swift fashion. If Sasuke was able to do so, I believe Lee, with the second gate activated, would definitely be able to outspeed Temari's wind and thus take her out. He would finally end up catching up to Gaara as he would begin trying to partially start fighting, transform Gaara, but would become tragically overpowered. Realizing that his speed was literally nothing compared to Gaara, he would decide that he's going to be needing more strength, more speed. He would think to himself, "I'm sorry, Guy Sensei," as he would say, "Fifth gate, open!" Immediately, the fifth inner gate would open within Gaara, or no, I'm so sorry, not Gaara, but Lee, as he would proceed to explode with power, beginning to completely outclass, outspeed, overpower Gaara in every single way, shape, and form. Imagine holding a small little doll and you just start throwing it up in the air, throwing it back and forth, tossing it within your hands. That's literally what he would do to Gaara in this moment, beginning to utterly destroy Gaara in such a speed that Gaara does not have the second to react and even try to transform into his full Shukaku state. Gaara would utterly be destroyed, nearing the point of unconsciousness, and his body would pretty much begin failing him. Gaara this time around was not going to be surviving that whatsoever. This version of Gaara was not hurt and took this battle very seriously early on. He would have thusly defeated Gaara. Following these events, what would end up happening is we switch our perspective back towards the direction of Zabuza and Might Guy, who at this point barely begun their battle. Now, the way that I see this all starting off would be Zabuza taking his blade out and rushing towards the direction of Might Guy, who would thusly block with his arms, legs, and he would kick Zabuza away, showing his superior strength. Zabuza, knowing that he doesn't want to actually end up playing into Might Guy's games and even use taijutsu, would begin trying to establish some distance between them by using a bunch of jutsus. He would start off by using the hidden mist jutsu, which would cause Guy's senses to be thrown off quite a bit. However, when Might Guy would begin getting used to this, he would begin dodging more and more and more. He would end up activating the second gate, which he would use his aura to pretty much blow all of the mist away, clearing everything up for the battle to continue, as Zabuza would begin fighting Might Guy more and more and more on more of an even term. Guy opening his second gate is somewhat like Kakashi activating the Sharingan, I guess you could say. So this battle would begin getting more and more even. Zabuza would be trying everything and anything he could in his arsenal to match Might Guy, and keep in mind, this version of Zabuza had an extra month and an extra week, plus the time that they were in the Chunin exams to train, so he did get a significant boost when it comes to his fight against Might Guy that he's going to be having to do. Not only that, but fighting against Kakashi definitely gave him a huge boost as well. Zabuza is a very smart fighter, and he is very talented. Zabuza is not somebody to be underestimated. I personally believe that Zabuza could have become a Mizukage, like 100%. Zabuza has his strength, and with a little bit more training, definitely could have reached his full potential, becoming somebody very powerful in the Naruto ninja world, if it wasn't for his tragic demise against Kakashi, the Sharingan ninja, the copycat of the Hidden Leaf Village. That said, we would then see Zabuza and Might Guy fighting back and forth more and more, as at this current moment, we would be seeing the unfortunate demise of Hiruzen to Orochimaru. I'm not going to be boring you guys with the details because I'm pretty sure many of you guys can already expect how this battle is going down. I'm going to be as transparent as possible. The battle between Hiruzen and Orochimaru would go exactly as it does in canon, with Naruto not even making his presence known quite yet. They would both sense a bunch of energies around them, but due to the fact that Naruto was so close to the barrier, they would not be able to even sense him. He would be using minor genjutsu to keep his presence hidden. And at this point, we would have the final point of the battle arrive, in which Hiruzen would end up stabbing the blade into Orochimaru, where he would thusly begin activating his Reaper Death Steel Jutsu. Orochimaru would see the Reaper in the air as he would be truly terrified for the first time in a long time, and Orochimaru would begin screaming, "No, it doesn't end this way." We would then see Naruto walk towards their direction, as this time his transformation jutsu would be completely off, and Hiruzen would look towards the direction of Naruto saying, "Naruto, is that you?" Naruto would walk towards Hiruzen's direction and say, "Yeah, old man, sorry I've been gone for so long. I'm gonna go train with this old man, but I'm back now." And Hiruzen would think to himself that that doesn't add up, but he needs all the help he can get for this current moment, idly thinking that Naruto was not a threat to him. Naruto would rush in with the old clothes that he remembers Naruto wearing rags, and as Naruto would begin getting closer and closer, Hiruzen would understand that Naruto's intentions were not that of helping. So he would end up pretty much having to stay there, because if he moves, the Reaper Death Steel does not work, and his attempt of sacrificing his own life would be in vain. Naruto, however, would take both of his swords out as he would say, "Listen to me, old man. I lived in that village, and I lived in hell for the years that I was with you. I can't believe that the Kage of my own village would have let me suffer. Not only did I suffer, but I suffered as the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. I was the greatest asset to this village, and still you let me suffer. All those years I slept alone, all those years I went hungry, and where were you? You simply stood idly by as I had to eat ramen every single day to survive. Where were you when I needed you, Hiruzen? Where were you?" Hiruzen, hearing these words come from the mouth of Naruto, would realize all of his failures, as he would see Orochimaru, his student who he had failed so long ago, and Naruto. the son of yet another student who he failed, and somebody who he also failed, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto would come rushing in at Hiruzen as he would stab 2 blades straight into Hiruzen, and Hiruzen would start coughing more and more blood out. It's at this moment that Orochimaru would finally be able to free himself, jumping away as his arms don't even end up getting sealed in this version. But Naruto would stand atop Hiruzen, who at this point begins coughing more and more blood out. Naruto would look at him as he would spit over Hiruzen's body, who was slowly losing consciousness and his life force. But Hiruzen would then have the strength to say, sorry, Naruto, as he would breathe his last breath. And Naruto, seeing the old man die before his eyes, would feel nothing, no regret, no remorse. He would then be hit with a flashback of memories of all the times that he had with Hiruzen, and a single teardrop would go down his face before he would quickly wipe it off before anybody could see. And Naruto would slowly begin getting his will back to hate Hiruzen. He would look down at Hiruzen, who at this moment just died, and Orochimaru would give off the signal for everybody to retreat. The Sound Four would rush in, as well as Naruto, as they would go over towards Zabuza's direction, and who was fighting alongside Haku, because Haku was not about to just stand by and let my man Zabuza just get outclassed by Might Guy, who would have unfortunately ended up activating the 3rd and 4th gate, and they were both barely able to make it out and survive that long. Because I'm gonna be honest, 4th gate Might Guy is a absolute monster. They barely managed to get out of there alive. As soon as Orochimaru was able to get done with his battle, they ended up saving Zabuza and Haku, and they would have ended up retreating from the Hidden Leaf Village with their mission accomplished, or at least half of it accomplished. At this point, they would end up retreating far enough from the village to where they had enough time to pretty much retreat with more calm, with more calm aura around the air. Like they're not terrified of getting caught by the Hidden Leaf Village. They did a ton of damage, and the aftermath of the village would pretty much be almost the same as it was in canon, with the exclusion of a bit more casualties happening this time around, just due to the fact that this time around Kakashi wasn't there to help my guy out with a bunch of the people who were actually causing a bunch of the trouble. That said, the Leaf Village would be in a sorry state and would be trying to rebuild itself. Jiraiya would have been asked to become the next Kage, and Jiraiya would have still turned this offer down, going to choose Tsunade. Jiraiya would have of course ended up finding out about Naruto leaving the village and pretty much becoming a rogue nin. And before you guys begin saying he wasn't even a rogue nin, he was technically in the academy, because people could start the academy at the tender age of 6 years old. So yes, Naruto was a rogue nin. That said, however, we would end up having Jiraiya pretty much search for Tsunade, and this time around, she doesn't have the offer of Orochimaru on the table. So while this is all happening and Jiraiya is looking for Tsunade, trying to convince her to become the Kage, what would end up happening during this time is that all of the Jonin who were there present would end up having a very fateful encounter with a certain person. Now, if you guys remember, in the original version of the story of Naruto, Kisame and Itachi would have ended up arriving to the Hidden Leaf Village. Itachi simply to make sure that the Hidden Leaf Village is aware that he's still around and to keep protecting Sasuke, also to check up on him. And they were also there to try to capture Naruto, who's not even in the village. However, this time they only arrived simply to check up on Sasuke. And when Itachi ended up finding out that Sasuke wasn't there, things get interesting. As soon as Itachi finds out that his younger brother is dead, after interrogating a couple of people and finding out more and more information, a bunch of the information regarding Team 7's death would begin leaking. And when Itachi finds this out, he would go to visit a gravestone engraved with the name Sasuke Uchiha. Death, 12 years old. He died in battle to an ice user. And that's all the information that Itachi could have ended up gathering. When Itachi finds this out, he loses his cool. There is nothing stopping this man from leaking intel on the Hidden Leaf Village and destroying the village as we know. But that's gonna wait for part 3. Like for part 4.